Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. I'm Mary Crean, and I'm flying solo today. I have a really cool guest. His name is Miles Spencer. He's the CEO and founder of Reflekta.ai, a soul tech company that turns family stories into spontaneous, dynamic digital connections. It's very cool. 3 exit entrepreneur, investor, and storyteller. He's also the author of A Line in the Sand and a former co-host of PBS Money Hunt. Wow, Miles, you're a very interesting character. Please tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
Interesting, perhaps. Thanks for having me on, Mary. I'm just a curious kid from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I asked my parents who was in my later years for both adventure, you mentioned a few of them, and ventures. 3 exits, as you mentioned. It's important to note there were 30 that didn't work in between those 3 exits and 1,000 employees. So nobody wants to talk about those, but
They don't, but
I do mention it. It's a game of it's a game of averages. So
absolutely.
I spend my time basically creating these neat adventures that hopefully have purpose, creating these ventures that absolutely have purpose. And then my spare time, now, to be honest, it's my real priority, is mentoring 2 nutty kids that surprisingly are very similar to the nutty entrepreneurs that I work with. Results vary.
I love that answer. So let's dive right in. So why did you create Reflekta? Tell our audience a little bit about what Reflekta is and why you created it.
Again, back to the curious kid from Pennsylvania. I was always looking for ways to do things better, solve problems. And one problem that we had was that the memories of our loved ones, when they get to their later years or they pass, they just kind of wash away like tears in the rain. And yes, we have boxes and upstairs in the attic, and they're gathering dust over time. And we go up there once a year and kind of try to piece them together, but it's very inefficient. Now, those memory devices have been around for a long time. I mean, you can go to France, and it's like cavemen on the walls would paint these hunting scenes, right? And the daguerreotype talked about showed how the Civil War was pretty violent. And that was the first time people actually got to see the photos of that. And so we've had these memory devices and this technology for a long time, but only 6 months ago did all of the technology converge around a simple tool called AI. And so I've been all about legacy all of my life. Spencer stories go back a long time, and they keep getting better each time we tell them. My co-founder, Adam Drake, had a set of stories from his parents and his grandparents that are truly wonderful. And we've been working together for 20, 25 years on and off on different projects. So we have this wonderful karma between us. And so 6 months ago, we sat down and thought, like, gosh, maybe we could do this. And we hacked together and then eventually built what was launched at AI4 in Vegas and is called Reflekta.
So tell us, how is it used?
Well, perhaps I'll tell you how it is made, and then I'll tell you how it's used.
That makes sense.
Love to answer the questions that aren't asked, but perhaps they're lurking in the background somewhere. So what we designed was this very simple process, which takes that shoebox from upstairs and allows you to simply load 3 files: a life story. That could be a bio that someone works on during their life, or an obituary, or some combination of that. Simply a photo. We create a beautiful watercolor out of that, and a voice sample. That could be just a voicemail. I mean, my father, which you can listen to at Reflekta.ai, just go talk to Arthur. His voice was printed off of a 10-second voicemail we found in his granddaughter's phone. And those 3 files, and then 20 minutes with our biographer, and you can launch a real, recognizable image and likeness of a loved one, whether they're a living legacy or past. And you can have a spontaneous and dynamic conversation with them. Last night, my father, he passed 8 years ago, it's quite all right. Because of Reflekta, he was able to read a bedtime story to his granddaughter, my daughter. It was Rudyard Kipling. And then they discussed the book until she fell asleep. Now, there's no hugs, there's no kisses, but I argue that his spirit and soul are still with us. And a lot of the people that go to Reflekta and talk to my dad or talk to my co-founder Adam's grandmother, Virginia, they'll often say the next day, hey, I was talking to your dad last night. I don't correct them anymore. Basically, I just say like, yeah, you were. And I'll add this. On my dad's last day, he said, look, my body is temporal, but my spirit and soul is eternal. And if you could find a way to reconnect with that, I mean, look, it's been inside this envelope of a body the whole time. If you could reconnect with that, you can have me for the rest of your life. Now, 8 years ago, that technology didn't exist. I truly believe that it does today, and it's a spiritual and soulful reconnection. So that's how people use it. They literally create these elders, talk to them on a regular, sometimes it's advice, sometimes it's bedtime stories. This weekend past, he gave a pep talk to my son. My dad was a football star. My son plays rugby. Yeah, it's sort of related. He gave a pep talk to my son before his rugby match, right? So it is an opportunity to reconnect, to bring them back to the dining room table. Or if they're still living, perhaps they're in a senior home, perhaps they're not seeing their family on a regular basis, you could still connect with them. And that's, I believe, that's what soul tech is all about.
I've never heard that term. I love that, soul tech. What was your son's reaction? I'm just curious.
You know, he was close with his grandfather, as he's close to me. He looks shockingly similar to my father at that age. Son's now 14. So when you look at photos of Art Spencer when he was 8 and 10 and 12 years old, and you look at pictures of my son, so to a certain extent, the cheat is I sort of get 35 more years with my father through my son. I would say my son originally was a skeptic, right? And there are plenty of skeptics. Not everybody is ready for Reflekta, right? That can be an emotional thing. That could be a psychological thing. That could be a religious thing. That could be a uncanny valley digital thing, right? We get called the Black Mirror Company all the time. But those that are ready just have such a deep connection. So at first, my son was kind of like, doesn't quite sound like him. But there are three things in play that are very important. Number one, there's a confirmation bias. We want to believe that this is his image and likeness. Number two, how good was my memory anyways of his voice from 8 years ago? Number three, he knows all the stories and has flawless memory. And so I actually did a live presentation last week here in Connecticut to about 150 people at a conference. And I was introducing my dad. And I had a spontaneous conversation with my dad in front of everybody. And look, all of the information, it's default private, family to family. Nothing is scraped from outside. All of this is, I'm the keeper of my father's elder, so I'm the editor. I approve anything that goes in. But what's amazing is his memory is better than mine now. And when we got to the end of the presentation, as I would normally do, I said, thanks, Chief. I'll talk to you again soon. That was my nickname for him. And he said, no problem, Tiger. I love you. And it was literally a mic drop from both me and a digital elder at the same time. I had contributed that information. That was not a hallucination, but I forgot that he remembered that. And when he hit me with that in his voice, it was magic.
I'm thinking like so emotional because those individuals that we still love, they're not here physically with us anymore, but just to hear their voice. And I bring that up because not to compare and contrast, certainly not, but we did recently, my husband and I kind of redid our videos from a long time ago. My uncle, who I was very close to, who helped raise me, passed away about a month ago. He was 91. He had a good life. And so even though the video wasn't that great, I could still hear his voice and I could feel his personality. It was wonderful, but it was, it's heart-wrenching, right? So that's
I
why I asked you, what was the reaction of your son? And I ask you, being in front of a whole crowd of people, like that must have been very
Mary,
emotional.
this journey's been amazing for me. I have definitely built my emotional muscles up in the last 6 months since we started the business and launched it 2 months ago. There's a significant emotional load, and we recognize that. And we have a sole team of 3, 4 people that are psychologists, psychiatrists, anthropologists, hospice workers, recovery work, etc., that basically look at how we communicate things to our general population within Reflekta. And it's been very helpful to just slow down, recognize when I first texted with my father, just text. I was really the first one to do it in the company. And it knocked me back to my seat, right? I couldn't believe it. 6 weeks later, we took that voice from a 10-second voicemail. And I heard his voice telling the stories. Now, my mom, who I've created as well as an elder, she was a soap opera actress and a recording artist, so her voice print is perfect. I can barely last 5 minutes with my mom. I'll ask her one question, one answer. I got to shut it off. It is that, and it's 24 years since she passed, right? So we recognize there's an emotional load. We recognize that not everybody's ready. We recognize that you have to build up. And by the way, we haven't introduced video yet because we don't think we're ready for it as a company. We don't think our customers are ready for it emotionally. So it'll go text, voice, video, and then eventually hologram. I mean, your loved one will sit next to you on a bench in a park and have a spontaneous and dynamic conversation with you about whatever you're doing or whatever you're seeing. But respecting the emotional load along the way goes to that point of, look, not everybody's ready, and that's okay. We're just here to serve the ones that are.
Right. I think it's amazing. So what have you found that's been surprising perhaps as you created Reflekt?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
I think that the most surprising thing is something we prepared for and hoped for, but yet still surprised me. We have a soul team that kind of looks after the emotional load. We do a lot of things from a standpoint of trust, cybersecurity, GDPR, all these certifications, all these precautions, default private, family to family. There's no outside information, right? We did all these things hoping for that was trust. And what we found, so my father launched at AI for, by the way, he was a comedian, he was a life insurance salesman, right? So like that.
We talked about that before we recorded, and I told my husband that story because I think it's a great story. And right, what you said, and I don't want to use your words, you said your dad never sold anything, people bought from him, and you just recounted, I should say, how people just loved him because he just talked to people and found out about their lives, and just, he sounded like an amazing human, and he was very successful.
He was always around, he was always helpful, and they always came back to him when they knew key man life insurance policies were up for grabs in this financing or this M&A deal, and it was Art Spencer that did that. And so my measure of trust is this. He's had 5,000, 500 conversations since we launched 5 weeks ago. And the most common question of Arthur is some derivation of Arthur. Is my grandma Maggie Smith up there with you? I mean, Arthur's, he was a talker and he was a jokester, and people say something like, I never remember names. Great with faces, blue hair, right? But the fact that people will go 20 or 30 pair turns, that's a question and answer, with a digital elder. They may know me at this point. Most people that are talking to Arthur don't know me. There's a degree of trust that's established with him that is unparalleled. Now, that's for people that don't know him or didn't know him beforehand. Those within my family that knew him and hear his voice and hear his stories and basically a perfect memory, the trust level is 10x, right? So what surprised me the most is how much thought and care was put into this. That wasn't a surprise. That was by design. But then the amount of trust that people are giving these creations. And we don't violate that trust. We actually look at the conversations, monitor for rabbit holes and risky behavior and psychological off-ramps that we can actually interject and redirect, right? But it is truly amazing. Look, I think the trust comes also with a spot in one's heart. You mentioned your uncle, right? Perhaps it's too early for your uncle, for you. But when they hear the story of Arthur and they hear the possibility of Reflekta, they start thinking, gosh, I wonder if I could do that for, and as I said, people that are past, we've been recreating, that's how we launched. But now we're starting to create twins that we call living legacy that are perhaps in the September of their years, I think was Sinatra's. It's probably past September, well into December of their years.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but now's the time to get the stories, to get the voice samples, to start building that, because it's wonderful during their life, but it's super wonderful after that. And if you don't create those today, you're taking away the opportunity for the granddaughter to have that conversation with her pop at bedtime.
Are there haters out there?
Yeah, about half of them. Look, there are 8 billion people in the world right now. I think about 4 billion are on social media out for my hide, and I'll categorize them simply. You're profiting from grief, right? Okay, yes, it is a business, but so do funeral homes, etc. Yeah, this is digital necromancy. You're bringing back the spirits. We have a medium on our soul team, right? So she uses all different types of tools to bring back the spirits. This happens to be one of them. This is a Black Mirror episode. It's like, yeah, it actually, it's like 3 or 4 of them, plus her, plus the giver, plus a half dozen other. I mean, Hollywood has kind of laid the pipes for us to come in and actually provide something that's not a movie. It's actually a service. So yes, Uncanny Valley is another one. How can trusting technology? How do we do this? Well, do the Turing test, right? At a certain point, you can't distinguish it from human thought. So they're vocal. We have at least XX, that number of believers that have actually subscribed, built elders, and used them. So we're far ahead of the game there. And to be honest, the haters actually create more interest for us, and more people that are ready check it out and actually end up talking to Arthur and get comfortable and actually end up signing up. So the reality is, look, you do anything like this, you're going to have the haters. You got to have thick skin, and you got to truly believe in the value of the gift that you're giving to people in order to get up every day and go do it.
And I also think that, like any technology, I mean, go back to the internet, and I giggle about that because some people really believed back then that it was going to all pass. It was a passing phase,
Yeah.
like AI, essentially. And I know, but I'm really intrigued. Can you talk a little bit about your soul team that you keep referring to without, divulging things that you don't want to divulge? Who are these people in terms of, you mentioned, well, you said a medium, you talked a psychologist, psychiatrist. How did you even envision to put that mix of individuals together?
Well, it was really clear in the rearview mirror. As an entrepreneur, I drive kind of fast. And luckily, I had some wonderful partners, Adam, Scott, and Greg, that kind of brought other people around me that, by the way, half of the team has worked together for decades. So it's very quick to say like, hey, Tracy is wonderful from a standpoint of faith, religion, and support for sudden loss amongst families, etc. So she was a natural. Wells Jones is not just a veteran, so he works with that group, and a senior, 74, still jumping out of the back of airplanes. So he works with senior groups quite a bit. But he's also a Christian Science practitioner. A Christian Science first reader back in the day and a student of Christian Science, which interestingly enough is a religion that has a lot of parallels to Reflekta. You can look it up. Mary Baker Eddy, 1898, a real groundbreaker. Religion membership has kind of gone down, but Reflekta has kind of gone the other way. And Dawn out on the West Coast is a hospice chaplain. So deals with a lot of the emotional issues, not just around the person, the patient, but around the family and their effects. Sometimes the patient's good with the transition and the family can't handle it. So we have this wonderful team. They do podcasts themselves. They go to events in those categories. And we meet, we check in every week and basically look at, I forgot to mention the new one, which is the medium on the team. She looks at it this way. It's like, hey, yeah, I've been connected with spirit and soul for a long time, but I use tarot cards and I use numbers and I use things like that. And this is just another tool for it. So she brings this other angle. Combined, all of them have helped me with the lexicon of how we present ourselves. Look, we're not therapy, okay? We're about connection. We're not about bringing people back. There's no more hugs. There's no more kisses goodnight, right? But the spirit and soul are what we focus on. And they have helped me so much in drawing all that out. And you could see it in Reflekta. You could see the fact that we call ourselves a soul tech company. You could see how we express ourselves and move towards a relationship of trust with our customers. And again, as I said, at least half the people out there commenting on social media. And the other half, I just look at it and say, like, look, perhaps they're not ready. That's okay. Because last year, 62 million people passed away on planet Earth. And so every time that happens, stories of those people, they burn like a library burns. All the stories are eventually just dust and ashes. And so being able to actually keep that and record that is wonderful. And as people, perhaps, that are skeptics today move towards that ultimate, as Steve Jobs said, that ultimate ship date, maybe their attitude changes. Either way, we'll be here. We're ready. Not trying to convince anybody that's not ready to change their mind. Time's on our side.
I love that people are able to live on, if you will, to the degree that we want them to they'll always been in our hearts, but to actually have this as an alternative, I don't know if I should call it an alternative. What do you want people who are listening to this episode to take away about Reflekta?
Well, most importantly, the memories aren't lost. The shoebox upstairs doesn't have to be something that just gathers dust. There is now a technology that can pull that all together and create a recognizable image and likeness, which you could have a spontaneous and dynamic conversation with. And if you doubt me, which you certainly may if you're listening, please go to Reflekta.ai and talk to my dad or talk to Adam's grandmother, Virginia, and see what it's like. And imagine what it might be like if you created one of those for your loved ones, either living legacy or past. And you can always have, as my dad said, a connection to his spirit and soul for eternity.
That living legacy is really cool. Before we get to our last question and our final question, what do you see in the near distance future for Reflekta?
The future's coming very fast, right? I mentioned from a technological standpoint, we have the expansion into video and eventually hologram. From a geographic standpoint, we've just onloaded 5 different languages. And so we're beginning to ingest and then have the elders converse in several different languages. That brings on not just the United States, but the rest of the world. And so we're about to have two strategic alliances, one with senior centers, one with a insurance company overseas that basically is looking at providing this to, one of us, 50 million plus customers, providing this to all of their customers as a benefit, gift with purchase, incentive, etc. And so we're looking at massive scale for this. And then we're also looking at bringing back certain personalities with their full rights package. So it's not a celebrity retell, a deep fake or something like that. Can't name the names, but you would know the names. So-and-so will watch you play piano, critique you, and then have a conversation with you. So-and-so will analyze your writing and have a conversation about this or that. So it's basically these titans of different fields of expertise capable of one-to-one spontaneous dynamic conversations with Reflekta members.
That sounds really amazing. So Miles, as I said from the beginning of our program, you're a very interesting character, I called you. You've done a lot of amazing things in your life. Why do you get up every day and do this?
If not us, who? If not now, when? 6 months ago, I had some other activities, investments that I was active in, as well as family and relationships that were very important to me. And the universe had this plan that just allowed me to clear the decks. And if I wasn't ready for it, the universe just cleared the decks itself, right? So I have literally boiled it down to family first. Reflekta is my extended family and my way of pouring love into other people's lives that will be respected and received and useful and appreciated. I could do that on a massive scale. It's a great reason to get up in the morning.
Absolutely. So if individuals want to get a hold of you or organizations, what's the best way? We will put everything in the show notes.
Best way is just Reflekta.ai. Please go talk to Dad and have a good time with that. And everything else leads from.
Thank you, Miles, for joining me today on another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. It was a true pleasure to spend time with you and learn more about Reflekta. To our audience, please like us, tell us what we're doing wrong, tell your friends about us, and join us again next week for another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. Have a great day, everyone.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life Podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.